Good evening, Fernwood. It is your TV pal Neil, and it's time for some more late night variety madness with another episode of Fernwood Tonight. If you haven't seen my face before, I've reacted to all of the shows I can find in the Fernwood universe, and that continues with Fernwood Tonight. Today we're watching episode 13 from July 20th, 1977. Yesterday got into some political intrigue, so let us take a look back. We started with Barth Gimble reminding us that he is now managing the Dunbar girls with the help of their mother Ruth. And then we have another rocket to fame with the elder matron of the Dunbar family, Lillian, who comes on to play tuba and do some tap dancing. Happy Kine visits the couch to tell us how important music is in his life, and then we bring on a new guest, James Earl Carter, who is not a look-alike but a name-alike to the president of the time. James tells us about some of the difficulties of living with the same name as the current president, and then Barth warms us up for his performance dedicated to Abraham Lincoln, and he sings an ode to the Gettysburg Address with the Dunbar sisters in the background providing their variety of support. And this leads to a political diatribe from Jerry, who reminds us all of how many of our presidents have died, and so many of them visited the premiere of Russia. Everyone, I had no idea how intense this show could get, so let us continue.
Tonight from Fernwood, Fernwood Tonight, coming to you live with your host for tonight, Mr. Barth Gimble. Tonight, Barth's guest will be Uncle Sam Jr., who wonders out loud about Richard Nixon. Candy Lee Hargrove, who wonders about her gynecologist. Dr. Arthur Shack with his shocking new solution to stupidity. And Happy Kine and the Mirth Makers. And me, I'm Jerry Hubbard. And now your host and mine, Mr. Barth Gimble.
Thank you very much. Thank you and welcome to another chapter of Fernwood Tonight. Tonight is our 13th show in a row here, which is kind of a record for us. We're not the least bit upset about that. I know there are some people to be superstitious about that. You know, they'd probably number it show number 14 or something, the way they do in elevators. But superstitions do not bother this television personality one bit. I would say number 13 is my lucky number. In fact, that's how much I would not avoid it. In fact, I'm reminded of the 13 original colonies, which built the foundation of our great nation, all of which were lucky enough to become states. Also, if I'm not mistaken, Jews have their bar mitzvahs at 13, and they've been around for 5,000 years, or maybe even 13,000, so they must be doing something right. And apparently they make a great deal of money on those. Also, Wilt Chamberlain, if I'm not mistaken, wore number 13. And it's right around the age of 13 that little tomboy of a daughter with the pigtails and the little smudge on her face and the patch on her pants bottom blossoms out and becomes the fair game of young womanhood. For some, it's even younger, which is lucky for all of us, I think. All I'm trying to say is that we're lucky to be here, and so are you, and I could probably name 1,000 reasons why 13 is a lucky number. I could name at least 13. I won't, though. I just think that, without a doubt, unsuperstitiously enough, this is going to be probably our best show. Knock on wood. Speaking of lucky, here's Jerry Hubbard. We're lucky to have him, aren't we?
And lucky to be here.
Nice to see you, Jerry. Jerry, do you have any superstitions of any sort?
None really to speak of. Oh, except, I don't know if you noticed, I tripped coming in here. I did that the very first show. I was a bit nervous. So every show since then, I don't know if you caught that.
No, I wasn't lucky enough.
Yeah, oh no. When I come up here, and you said, here's Jerry Hubbard, I gave it kind of a little trip. But other than that, really nothing. Except, yes, I do. I tell a lie, because anytime I spill something, I carry some salt around, and you throw that over your shoulder there to kind of take the whammy off.
Sure.
But other than that, really...
really nothing. That's great.
Except like a lot of athletes do. If a show is going well or a game series is going well, they don't change their clothing or their habits. I've been wearing these socks now. This is 13 shows. And as long as they go well, I'm not going to change. Still living in the same apartment. 13 shows.
13 days in a row.
Today I come in the same gate. Today they locked it, and I was almost late. Had to climb over, and they have that barbed wire on top, which is kind of tricky getting in. But other than that, oh, and one more thing. I kind of still carry this first want ad. I got my first job. That's kind of a lucky souvenir there, and it kind of brings back memories, a little nostalgia.
Now, this is funny, Jerry, because most people just have a member of their family mow their lawn. You were kind of kind of lucky to get that,
That's
weren't
right.
you? In fact, you're lucky to be working today, I think.
Yes.
You're certainly lucky to be here.
Some people may say that, yeah.
I just did. Now, our first guest has been lucky enough to be with us before as well. He is the retired assistant postmaster here in Fernwood.
Oh, yes.
He writes patriotic verses in the Fernwood Courier. I think you know what I'm talking about. He goes by the name of Uncle Sam Jr., but since that has a somewhat stupid ring to it, if you ask me, we just call him our own Vernon Taylor, or as he's better known to a lot of people who love a stupid ring when they hear it, Uncle Sam Jr.
All right, let's bring him up.
Hello, friends. Maybe like me, you shared the disgust and horror recently of watching an ex-president being ruthlessly grilled like so much ground chuck by a foreigner from another country. Maybe you felt the pain of a man who in his lifetime has gotten more than 300 million votes for one thing or another. Being hounded by a man who's never even been elected the Queen's dog catcher. And all this taking place not in Richard Nixon's own living room, but in a phony living room, blocks from his own house. Who among us would put up with such kind of pressure, blocks from our own house? Well, Mr. David Frost, if that's in fact your name, I have some more questions that you should be asking Richard Nixon. Questions that all America would like to hear him answer. Questions like, how's Mrs. Nixon? Is Julie working? Is town committee cold at night? How's that leg? And finally, what happened to your flag pin in your lapel? Did you lose it when you moved? I also have a few questions for David Frost. Or is that just a gnome to television? Okay, Mr. Wise Guy, now I've got the clipboard. How come you don't do the same kind of thing to Queen Elizabeth? Her daughter's pregnant, for God's sake. Julie wouldn't do a thing like that. How would you feel if your most trusted friends and advisors turned out to be crooks who took every little joke you made seriously? How come you and Diane Carroll never got married? Or was it Diane Cannon? I don't know. You tell me. And finally, Mr. Frost, or was it Frostinski? Let's not pay Mr. Nixon off in those English pounds. You and I both know you can't buy anything with pounds. I've been in England and they wouldn't cash my personal check. Ringo Starr never had a problem over here. And isn't it sad when an entire country refuses your ketchup? You ketchup on your scrambled eggs. I say it's time we all got up out of our chairs and then one big voice said, hey, what's the deal here? Number, I'd like to do my little salute to the late and great Benny Goodman. God love you, Benny. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
We'll be right back after these important words. Well, we're back. My next guest is a pioneer, I guess you'd have to call him. A pioneer, not so much a pioneer, though, but a pioneer in the field of education. He's come up with a fascinating new educational technique that could revolutionize the way we all learn things. Would you please welcome Dr. Arthur Schack.
I don't think we can ever have too much learning.
Imagine, I can see how you would think that. Dr. Schack, tell us about your new techniques of education.
Well, aversion therapy has been popular for years in specialized fields. For instance, a chronic alcoholic can learn not to drink by electric shock therapy.
I'll be darned.
People can learn to lose weight by electric shock treatment, and people can learn not to smoke by electric shock therapy. In fact, we believe that people can learn anything by electric shock therapy. That's why we have established the Shack Shock Center.
I see. The Shack Shock Center. Have to learn to say that, even. Exactly what kind of people go to the Shack Shock Center?
Well, anybody who has problem learning things can benefit from our program at the Shack Shock Center. You see, what we do, we teach people to do something by teaching them not to do something else. It's quite simple, by a process of elimination, and eventually they arrive at the right answer, because that's the only way they can avoid getting an electric shock.
You know, Doctor, I can't fool these wonderful people here at Fernwood and pretend that we've never met before. I don't know whether I appeared or not, but this doctor here is responsible for the fact that in a few short, painless weeks, I got over a great problem of my own. Is that right? Mm-hmm. I no longer lose my car keys, which I used to lose all the time. The car keys are in the dressing room right now, or maybe in the car, but...
I think I saw them lying on the carpet in the hallway. They have several keys on a chain?
Little football
Yeah,
on them?
but that was yours? I kicked them
So in other words, they're not lost, and I have the doctor to thank for that. So rather than sit here and rap back and forth, could you possibly show us in action how this process works?
Oh, I'd be delighted. I brought a unit along with me.
Fantastic. Now we'll need some volunteers.
Right here.
No, Jerry. I think you ought to go out and get a volunteer.
In the audience.
That's it.
Good thinking. Okay, you heard the man. Any volunteers? Who wants to be on television? Oh, we have a lot of hands up. Let's see. Someone who wants a little shock treatment here.
People have learned many things during their lifetime which they seem to forget later on, but deep down in their subconscious, they cannot be forgotten, and the Shack Shock therapy forces them to recall them.
That's fantastic. Okay,
Here's your volunteer, doctor. And how do these things work?
No,
that'll teach you.
put this on.
Okay, now that we have this gentleman here, nice to see you. Why don't we ask him a question?
Why don't we start by asking him what is the capital of Afghanistan?
Fine, sure.
I don't know.
I don't know is obviously not the right answer. Now, let me ask you again, what is the capital of Afghanistan?
Cairo.
Ah, you got that quick enough. Probably the other.
I mean, you know which one it is.
Santiago.
No, you're still cold. No.
Caracas.
Getting warmer. Let's go.
Come on, what is the capital of Afghanistan?
Innsbruck.
Darn good guesses.
No, we can be here all day, you know. I don't mind. I can put the machine on automatic.
Interestingly enough, these are all correct answers to other questions. It's just the questions aren't
Rochester.
Doctor, I can see how your methods can be of great practical value to almost everyone. I wonder, is your academy self-sufficient, or could you use contributions?
Well, you can imagine that our school costs are much higher than others. Our electricity bills are staggering.
You might even say shocking. Thank you. Oh, it's so easy for me.
They were Warsaw.
No. We ought to try this over here. Yeah, I think right where it's needed.
Anything that'll help here.
Okay, we'll be right back after these important remarks. Our next guest has been with us before. She's with the Fernwood Fascinating Female League. Please welcome Ms. Now that's a woman, Ms. And of course we'd be Mer, wouldn't we? Thank you. Miss Candy Lee Hargrove. Come on.
Welcome back.
Welcome, Candy
Well,
Lee.
just a minute, thanks. Ooh,
You all right? Comfy?
oh yeah.
That's how we like it. For the benefit of some of our viewers who didn't catch you last time you were on the show here, might not be familiar with the organization of the Fascinating Females of Fernwood, can you tell us just very quickly what the group is all about?
Well, we're just a bunch of females who are married or dating seriously, and we get together and we discuss our problems and our ideas and our recipes.
Sure.
Ways to be more complete, vital, fulfilled housewives.
That's great. So what have you been discussing lately?
Well, what we have been discussing is the subject of gynecology.
Oh, boy. Well,
You asked.
yeah, that is a fascinating area. No question about it.
What area is that?
Gynecology. Gynecology, Jerry?
Yes.
Should ring a bell?
Not really.
Okay. They've been discussing gynecology, okay?
All right, yes. I got that. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's medical. Medical. Have they ever come up with a cure for that?
Candy? What got you girls interested in gynecology in the first place?
Well, Barth, it is an area of concern to all us girls. And gynecologists are a subject that touch all of us, be we married or be we going steady.
Just as long as be we girls. And we be, right?
Well, I can't, well,
I know
you
be.
not be, he not be, you not be. I
you
be.
be.
Yeah, I be. But let me tell you, it is so terrifying to be so completely examined by somebody that you have never even dated.
Yeah. Not even lunch or anything like
No,
that.
I mean, you just are in a state of shock. There is this man pushing on your stomach with all his weight and asking you if you had a nice weekend.
Oh, boy.
You can't help but blush, even if you're a sophisticate like me.
Sure.
And you don't know where to look. You can't look at him in the eyes, so you start memorizing all of his diplomas.
Sure.
And after you've seen one, you've seen them all, you know?
How can you look him in the eye when he's certainly not looking you in the eye? Absolutely, it's a problem. Sure.
Gynecologists are cruel. The telephone rings and they leave you on hold. It's just, you know, the whole thing is impersonal and uncomfortable. To them, it's just an appointment that keeps them off the golf course. But to us, it's a way of life, you know? So, we fascinating females thought it was time to get the problem out into the open.
Sure.
We decided to make it our group rap session subject at our meeting.
Fabulous.
And this is the good part. I got to take the minutes. It was really fun. I had my own pencil and everything. I didn't bring it, but it's, you know, it's yellow.
Listen, I hate to get off the subject, but did you come to any conclusions about the subject of gynecology?
Well, we decided that the best solution would be for us to go to a lady gynecologist who could better understand our fears and anxieties. Then, somebody voted that there were no female gynecologists in Fernwood.
Oh.
So then we decided that we better take another vote.
Sure.
So...
And so you voted to have a new solution of some sort.
No. That's when we voted to have the biscuits and jam. It's all in a minute.
Well, maybe you could come back and spend a few hours even with us sometime when you know a little bit more about what you're talking about. Apparently you know nothing at all about gynecology. Is that right?
Nothing.
Okay, fine. So in that case, we'll be moving on. We'll actually be moving backward because our next thing is a man who was on earlier this evening. You remember Mr. Vernon Taylor, or Uncle Sam Jr., is actually, as well as being quite a poet, is a wonderful musician. Don't, judge him by what he played earlier. So I was thinking how nice it would be to have Vern and Happy Kine, our own Happy Kine, get up there and join me in a kind of a sacco little number that's a little bit more upbeat, kind of a classic rhythm and blues kind of song. So would that be all right? Why don't I join them? Okay. Oh, see what she done. Yeah. She rider. See what she done. Yeah. Now your loving ain't done gone. Come on. See. Ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing wrong with your set. I think we have a little problem on our set, however. Well, Jerry, as long as you found the king's seat, what's on your alleged mind?
Actually, I do have a rather funny story I'd like to tell. It seems... show with Vern Rowe as Vernon Taylor, David Hurst as Dr. Arthur Shack, and Geraldine Papel as Candy Lee Hargrove.
That one honestly just made me giddy, though there were uncomfortable moments to be sure. We start with Barth going on about the 13th episode and superstitions in general, and then going on a little 13-related diatribe that leads to some, I guess we would have described it back in the days as grass on the field talk. I'm not going to expand on that, but, well, it reminded me so much of the 23 enigma, that Discordian conspiracy theory that led to so much interesting thought and eventually was made into a Jim Carrey movie. Just how much silliness and weirdness is applied to the way we think about numbers. In general, this warm-up set is about superstition, and Jerry comes on and sort of tells us how he trips as he enters, which is something that we at home never see because, he's almost always off camera until the camera pans to him. But that is apparently a thing, and also that he doesn't change his socks. And then we have another visit from Uncle Sam Jr., Vernon Taylor, who is there to tell us about the recent Frost-Nixon interview in which Nixon essentially kind of outed himself for some bad behavior. I think that's the simplest way to put it. This story was turned into a movie decades later, but at the point that Vernon is discussing this, it's really fresh on the minds of the public. And Vernon has a completely softball stance on how we should be questioning the president. And that is followed up by a bit of Sing Sing Sing, which was Benny Goodman's hit. It's strange for me seeing Uncle Sam Jr. twice now to think of this swing music as at some point being seen as a sort of Americana or a really patriotic kind of music in the way that Vernon is referring to it, because, back in the 30s and 40s, when swing music was a thing, it was kind of the punk rock of its era. That's where teenagers, who were not yet called teenagers, would go and get wild. There's a long history of swing music, and it's generally remembered very, very differently than it was. It's sort of remembered as this ultra-patriotic thing, but, and there are different artists who have different points of view politically in the swing history, but it's interesting by the 1970s that it's viewed as sort of quaint. And then we meet Dr. Arthur Shack, who is there to tell us about new developments in education, specifically electroshock therapy used as a tool, teaching someone the capital of Afghanistan. Essentially, every guess that they make that is wrong gets them an electroshock. I'm not really sure where the information comes from, other than the fact that they're getting shocked. But it is amusing to see someone getting electroshocks in this light form. And then we get another visit from Candy Lee Hargrove of the Fernwood Fascinating Females. And here she's talking about the difficulty of gynecology and what the Fascinating Females have talked about. Funny to me that Jerry has no idea what this word means in the 1970s. I expect some men might have known about it, but apparently not. And if you yourself are not sure what a gynecologist does, that's the doctor that deals with patients that have vaginas and uteruses and other reproductive organs in that stable. There was lots of double entendres in there that were just delicious because, it's fun to skirt around a vagina, I guess. We then end with Barth doing a rendition of C.C. Ryder with Happy Kine and Vernon Taylor. And, it was fun. So there we are. That's what I've got for this episode. So now let us readdress the topic of the week. This was a question that was brought up in February, and that was, of any of the citizens of Fernwood, who would you date and what would happen on that date? Today's answer comes from Skip Eastport. On the pretext of discussing his political career, I would have invited Merle and Wanda to the fanciest place in town, the Starlight Room atop the Holiday Inn. There I'd convince them to join me in MDA. Once rolling, it would be off to the Capri for cosmic bowling. We'd cap off the night and Ma and Pa's bide a wee inn out on the highway, where we'd give new meaning to close encounters of the third kind. I'm not sure, Skip. I didn't realize you were British, but there you are. Yeah, that sounds like a fun date. To be honest, Merle and Wanda, while sort of weirdly dysfunctional, actually do have a solid relationship. And though they didn't start really on the same page romantically or erotically, they did eventually get in that direction. More of the problems in their lives had to do with other people interfering. At first it was Lila, and then it was Adeline and Mickey Mo, who were really more just a crowding sensation than anything else. They weren't trying to, get with each other. But they do have a fun little connection, and though they don't always work together in the most efficient ways, they do seem to bear some real strong connection. They, for some reason, always end up on their feet through their problems. So, Skip, that does sound like a fun date. I'm not sure that cosmic bowling was a thing in the 1970s, but hey, make it as fun as you want. So everyone, that was our Wednesday episode of Fernwood Tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining in the weirdness. Thank you so much for being you. And we will see you tomorrow night in Fernwood.